Welcome back to the cast. Colton, Anderson Sports Talk, David Kunz also with us. It's worth mentioning, coming up at 8:40, may the AAF RIP, David. And Bryce Harper returning to Washington, D.C. is just what baseball needed. All that and more possibly in the next segment. But for this segment, let's talk a pair of Russes. A pair of Russell W's. Russell Wilson in Seattle and Russell Westbrook in Oklahoma City, both making big news, big waves in their respective sports. And let's start with the latter, Russell Westbrook. 2 nights ago against the Lakers, he had a triple-double, 20 points, 20 rebounds, and 21 assists. And here are some quick facts to go along with that stat line. Only other player in NBA history to have a triple-double is Wilt Chamberlain. But in my opinion, we can only take Wilt's numbers with a grain of salt. And I don't really want to get into why I feel that way, but this might as well be the first time in NBA history somebody's ever done something like this. Today's NBA, those numbers and that record, that stat line, 20, 20, and 21 is very, very impressive. Perhaps the best singular feat this season. And David, my first question to you is, which achievement, in your opinion, is more impressive? Westbrook's triple-double or James Harden's 32-game 30-point streak?
Probably the triple-double. I mean, I don't know. I don't care about scoring as much necessarily. And I think like if only Wilt Chamberlain has done that before, and also Russell Westbrook's like a foot shorter, and in a modern NBA where everyone's significantly more athletic, I think it's like way more of a feat.
Yeah. But both of those stats are pretty effort-based stats, right?
Yeah.
James Harden tries really hard for his 30 points a night. Russell
for his offense.
Yeah,
they both do.
Yeah, Russell will box out his own teammates perhaps to get his boards, and sometimes he's a little bit of an unselfish passer, if that makes any sense. He should clearly try to score here because he's Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
But he makes a pass because he's trying to aid his numbers a little bit. But he had 21 assists, and that's not even a career high for him. That's not even a season high for Russell. Russell Westbrook had 24 assists on January the 10th of this year. No other player in the NBA has had more than 19 assists this season. Westbrook's done 20 twice. And oh, by the way, last year, Russell Westbrook had 2 20-plus assist nights, and only Rajon Rondo had the other 20-plus assist game. This decade, 21 or more assist games have happened 9 times. Russ has 4 of those 9. Right?
Who are the other ones? This decade, you said?
Yeah, this decade, 21 assist games have happened 9 times. Russ has 4 of those 9. And I guess the list is pretty much Rajon Rondo and Russell Westbrook with a sprinkle of Darren Williams and Chris Paul, I believe. I don't have the cohesive list in front of me. But when we think of great passers of the different generations, when we think of the Stocktons and then the Steve Nashes and Jason Kidds, right? Spanning the generations, Chris Paul for this one, Rajon Rondo for this one. We should list Russell Westbrook among those names. We should do it, but we don't do it. I don't believe we do. And maybe you think we do, but we don't.
No, I don't think we do. And I think that is because of the thing you said about like the selfish playmaking. Like it seems like he's doing it so he can get more assists. Like that's the knock on Westbrook. Everyone thinks he's a stat padder rather than someone who does it to win.
Yeah, no one has had more assists this decade than Russell Westbrook. Going back to the start of the 2010-2011 season until now, no one has had more total assists in the last 9 seasons than Russell Westbrook. Not Rondo, not Chris Paul, not anyone. Russell Westbrook is 18th all-time in assists, and he's still at the very least, he still has 7 more seasons in him of pretty solid basketball. He's going to finish top 10 all-time in assists. He's going to do it. But he's not known as a prolific passer. His stats, though very impressive, are generally empty. Rebounding, too. No guard has more rebounds in this decade than Russell Westbrook. Second place for guards in total rebounds this decade is James Harden with 1,202 less rebounds than Russell Westbrook this decade. Think about this hypothetical. Russell Westbrook could blow out his knee and be out for all of next season. And James Harden next year could pull down 1,201 rebounds next year and still finish this decade with less rebounds than Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook has an unbelievable amount of rebounds. He's going to be like the most rebounding guard of all time. Of all time. But again, just like with passing, we don't think of Russell Westbrook as this tenacious rebounder who out-rebounds a lot of NBA big men. Russell Westbrook right now is like 7th in the league in rebounding, period. Not just for guards. Only Chris Paul has more steals this decade than Russell Westbrook. I mean, these are great stats. Steals, rebounds, assists. If you do those things very well, your team's going to win a lot of games. But it's different for Russell Westbrook. Those numbers are very, very empty. And he achieves these numbers by playing super, super hard and sometimes padding his stats in very strange ways that don't totally manifest itself in W's, right? A Russell Westbrook-dominated team is not a good mold to have. And despite having Paul George, who was at one point an MVP candidate, and despite having Steven Adams, one of the best big men in the league, they're going to lose in the first round of this year, most likely. Russ had a double, triple-double. And it seems to him that there's nothing much under the surface in Oklahoma City, right?
I think that something is different this year because this is the least amount of points that Russell Westbrook has averaged in the last 5 seasons. He's taking less shots, and he's playing harder defense, in my opinion. He is averaging 2 steals per game. That Oklahoma City defense is actually the top in the league. Mm-hmm. He still slacks off sometimes. So do all the stars in the NBA. But I just genuinely feel like I've seen more effort this year, and I've seen him actually be a playmaker and facilitate a ball. Like on the fast break, he doesn't seem like he's just either sprinting at the hoop or trying to get an assist. He seems like he's trying to do things.
Trying to do
for the first
right
time
play.
this year.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's fair too because, I mean, you look at the Oklahoma City Thunder. Yes, I do believe they're going to lose in the first round, whether they finish at the 5 and play Portland, who's going to be the number 4, or they can slide all the way down to the 7 and then play the 2 Denver Nuggets. They're going to be a tough out, and I'm looking forward to Russell Westbrook and Paul George in the playoffs as a unit. That being said, I think it's clear that a Russell Westbrook-led team is a bad mold. Just like how these stats are incredible, but we see that he's only made 1 finals, and that was in his, I believe, rookie year or his second year. And they almost made the finals when they had the Warriors 3-1 3 years ago. But if Russell Westbrook is so great, if his numbers are like top 10 across the board, he's going to be a Hall of Famer, then why don't we think of him as a prolific passer, as a tenacious rebounder, as a tenacious defender, as an unbelievable scorer? I mean, we do think of him as an unbelievable scorer, but that's the only one that makes sense, his scoring ability. Other than that, his game as we know it is a little bit overrated. Way overrated. And
even his scoring ability, maybe. He shoots under, he hasn't shot over 45% since 2015, so.
Yeah, and those numbers aren't going to go up either.
No.
Unless he decides to pass more.
Which he's been doing this year, which is why I'm a little bit less on the attack on Westbrook this year.
Yeah, I just think that he's one of the strangest athletes in the entire world because he has these incredible numbers and fans love him. That being said, basketball purists and journalists like you and I don't see him, don't hold him in as high as regard as his numbers may demand.
Yeah.
Rightly so, by the way, too. But let's move on to the second Russell W that we're going to talk about. Real quick, Russell Wilson, quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks. And this week he is coming down hard on his team. He has come out publicly and said if his camp and the Seahawks can't get an extension done by April 15th, then he will not sign and become a free agent at the end of this coming season, a calendar year from now. He doesn't want to worry about a contract during team workouts or mini camps or whatnot. He wants to focus solely on football and not on contract issues, not on money. And this is a little bit uncharacteristic of Russell Wilson, isn't it? His whole career, he's been quiet, pro-team, pro-leader, pro-locker room, pro-Carroll, pro-front office. But this is playing hardball. And I love it, honestly. I think it's a really good move for Russell Wilson to make. And often on this show, we talk about perspective, David. We talk that some players don't have accurate perspective when they make demands, when they make moves across all sports. Some players think they're way more important than they actually are. Some people think they're way too good for what they actually are. Their value is way too high for what it actually is. And as a result, I'm generally pro-owner, pro-GM, pro-team in these player versus team disputes. I was pro-Steelers all the way and anti-Le'Veon Bell, just to name an example. But in this case, it's the Seahawks that are showing a real general lack of perspective. I think Wilson is totally in the right to play hardball right here, and he deserves Matt Stafford money, Kirk Cousins money. He deserves
for sure.
He deserves to be a top 5 paid player in this league.
I mean, absolutely.
Should he be the highest paid quarterback in the league? I think if he was, I could justify it more than I could maybe Matt Ryan or Matt Stafford at the time. But I don't think that's what he's asking for. I don't think he's saying, make me the highest paid player in the league or I'm out. I think he's saying, give me a good contract here.
Yeah.
Give me a really good deal. He's earned top 5 money. He's earned it because that's what he's been over the course of his entire career. As soon as he stepped foot onto the field, he was a top 10 quarterback. And by the time he won a Super Bowl, which was at the end of his second year, he was a top 5 quarterback.
And that is 100% a knowing your worth thing. I mean, and he's not deluded maybe like Le'Veon Bell was in this situation. He is the quarterback of a team that has won a Super Bowl, and he has been a direct reason that they won that Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
He has leverage.
He has total leverage, and you got to pay him, I believe, for the character he's been off the field.
Yes.
We talk about how he's pro player, and he's a great role model, and he's never an issue in the locker room. That should be the standard, but that's becoming more and more rare in this social media age of the world, and especially sports. Players love to make noise. Players love to be in drama. Players, at the very least, like to have their hands in other ventures around business in general. Russell Wilson is all about football and all about good character, and he needs to be richly rewarded for not just his on-the-field achievements, but his off-the-field achievements as well. He's been the best quarterback anybody could ask for. He's been a rock solid. He's been healthy as well, and he's kept that team afloat. Right after the Legion of Boom fell apart, that whole team could have fallen apart. That whole team could have gone 4-12. But since they had Russell Wilson, and only Russell Wilson, they had no offensive line, they had no top wide receivers, they had no running back, their defense was falling apart, they only had Russell Wilson. Guess what? They make the playoffs and go 10-6. They go 11-5 because of Russell Wilson, because he's so great. Last year, they made the playoffs with nobody on their roster. He had career highs in passing touchdowns and in QBR, and a career low in interceptions. He was 3rd in the league in QBR behind Drew Brees and Patrick Mahomes last year. And his interceptions were tied for 2nd fewest among starting quarterbacks. Total TDs tied for 3rd amongst all quarterbacks. He's only 30 as well, 30 years old. He needs 5 more seasons of contract extension. That's what he needs. That's what he deserves. And he deserves to play hardball in this instance. Coming up next, it's time for It's Worth Mentioning. Stay with us. It's The Cast.